Hello everyone, Merry Christmas, and hope you guys have been enjoying the holidays. So today we have 1.5 billion things to go over in Gems of War. It has been a very busy last week going into this week as far as Gems of War. There's a lot of new PvP things. They end up dropping a little overview thing of Guild Wars. Of course, we haven't had that for an entire year now, pretty much the longest we've ever gone without it, not counting from since the beginning of the game to when Guild Wars first got released, but the longest amount of time since Guild Wars has been released, we haven't had it. And of course, the Lord of the Stings event, which is Stingbat, is added to the game. So let's start in a bit of a weirder order. We're going to be going over very just briefly the Guild Wars sneak peek. So this is just a sneak peek. I'll be probably reading this in its full entirety on stream tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we do every Monday. But basically, just as a quick overview, link will be in the description if you want to go and check it out yourself. It is just going over all of what they've currently been structuring for the next Guild War. Of course, we haven't had it for about a year now. They've been trying to restructure it for the new system that we have, as well as making it a little bit better. For example, before it was basically only really the top 3 guilds or so that really got any rewards, so they ended up reworking as well, of course, how the reward system works, how the bracket system works. Two of the more interesting things is no hidden scoring anymore. I know this was a really annoying thing, especially explaining it to newer players, how exactly the scoring in Guild Wars work. I know when we ended up first winning Guild Wars for the first ever Guild Wars, it was very, very, very straightforward, like overly straightforward. Like basically, if all 30 people in your guild was just there doing it every single day, and you just didn't lose any units, and you were using pure color, you basically got max score. So it was really, really simple back then. But then they made it increasingly more convoluted to the point where it has like all these hidden numbers. They're doing hidden things that is almost impossible to ever get like a perfect battle on, because you would need just like the perfect event of just instantly getting full mana, instantly killing out your enemy, and a bunch of other stuff that it just was really annoying to deal with. So they were going with no hidden scoring or bonuses. So it should be really straightforward now what exactly you'll need to do in this new Guild Wars system as far as earning your maximum amount of points. It probably won't be as easy as it was when Guild Wars first released, but will not be as convoluted as it probably was, you know, when Guild Wars basically ended. So be interesting to see exactly how this ends up panning out. The other thing that's really interesting is the ELO system. We're going to be having an ELO rating for it instead of the bracket system that was before. This is really good, particularly for new guilds, as well as pretty much all guilds, but particularly new guilds. Biggest issue that the previous Guild Wars system had is the brackets. So basically how the brackets end up working is, you know, you had like 10 guilds per bracket, and you kind of just kept moving just slightly up or slightly down. It made it really, really hard for guilds that were new to move up a ton of brackets, because they had to move through every single guild that was, you know, in that array. And it took absolutely forever. I think even after a year, even if your guild was able to take them on, I don't think you could even get to like the top 5 brackets in a year with the previous system. But now with this ELO rating system, maybe like a month at most, your guild will pretty much get put to where it needs to be as far as the difficulty level, as far as the guilds that you're going to be facing and everything like that. So this, combined with whatever they do to rework the reward system, has a lot of potential overall. But yeah, so basically it's their overall overview of it. I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, there's still in development, so we still have a little ways to go. It's not like released in the game yet. Could be a couple patches from now. I did actually mention hard at work on 8.4. Is it going to make it for 8.4? Oh yeah, it actually will make it for 8.4. Okay, so that's going to be pretty early next year then. That's probably going to be like January, February update kind of thing. So yeah, it is right around the corner then. We should be able to have that finally after about a year and a month, or a year or 2 months. We should finally have Guild War back into the game again. So of course, there is one other thing to go over that is related to PvP for any PvP enthusiasts out there. We got ourselves Season 3. So there are a few things that ended up changing with this. They actually ended up changing quite a bit actually. So of course, the whole PvP season, earn your points, get up to whatever rewards you want. And we ended up getting 2 new Immortals, as well as a couple tweaks to the tasks. They probably had data on how many people were actually completing them. I know last season I didn't do nearly as much as I did the first season. So they have actually ended up changing a lot of tasks to actually be easier than what they were before. All the data points are over here. I also have this linked in the description as well, because I'm not going to read over like every single one of them. But a brief overview is there's just a bunch of tasks that became easier to do. So whenever you're trying to go and get whatever tier you need, bronze, silver, or gold, to go and complete out those seasonal missions, they are slightly easier to obtain compared to before. And of course, we ended up getting some new Immortals. Most of them, or one of them, wasn't really too good. This one right here, it just eliminates some points from 2 random enemies. It eliminates a bunch of points from 2 random enemies to all enemies. Wait, I cannot read right now. Eliminate 28 points from 2 random skills to all enemies. And if it's using its corresponding place in PvP, it'll have double the effect, and inflicts a random status effect. Overall, this thing is pretty underwhelming and won't really get used, same as his weapon. However, and his pet, There is one that is really interesting. So back in the day, you guys may know of a troop called the Great Maul. The Great Maul back in the day had its ability that it currently has, but also had a 15% chance to devour whenever it took a skull. This was pretty bugged at the time, though they have since fixed how traits interact in that regard, where it was able to 4 times devour an entire team. At one point, it was eventually nerfed down to 10%, and it was nerfed down to 5% and gave to Krog the Dread, which had Impervious, instead of the Great Maul. So, but finally, they have actually re-added this trait to the game. Keep in mind, it will not have its 4 times devour 15% like it used to have back in the day. That's been fixed. However, it does still have a 15% chance to devour. It ends up gaining a bunch of attack, life, and armor. And if you use in Central Spire, of course, the place where you can use anything, it has double the effect. And also ends up exploding 5 red gems, so still gets a little bit of mana accumulation for its absurdly high mana cost, as a lot of Immortals have. But the main thing that's really interesting here is its trait setup. It reduces all damage by 60%, or sorry, all skull damage by 60%. It has indestructible for immunity to nearly everything, even better than the Impervious that Krog the Dread has. And of course, we have finally gotten the return of the 15% chance to devour the first enemy whenever you take a skull. But yeah, we haven't had this ability in like, what, 8-9 years? So interesting to see this come back. Obviously, Krog the Dread has had it, but 5% is pretty low. But 15% with those traits, I can see this being used a lot in skull spam teams in the future, due to how much immunity it has, due to how much it negates out other skull teams, and of course, is having a devour on top of it. The biggest issue I can see with it, though, is if it ever becomes super popular and you have mirror matches, this could be kind of a problem, because this in first slot versus this in first slot is a very slow battle, which you are probably not going to bother using that for. But, you know, if you're using it but the enemy isn't in those kind of situations, it could end up being pretty useful, especially if you're fighting like a standard like Stellarx quick kill team, and maybe those features next year that can kind of negate that a little bit and kind of help make it so, you know, like an AoE team might not hurt you as much, or even currently mechanics like Submerge can end up helping, and then just go and devour out their team with skull spam. So hey, skull spam meta, it's making a return slightly. The only problem is he's really bad in a mirror match, but outside of a mirror match, I can see him being used in Underspire. I could see him being used in Underworld. I could see him being used in pretty much any restriction, Construct, Bladed Lands, any of the colors for other various game modes, and you just need like a really good skull tank. Yeah, this thing has a lot of potential going forward, and I would say he's the second strongest Immortal in the game right now, competing with that of Ossifer. They're both very strong, but they're both very strong in different ways. And keep in mind, of course, you can only ever have 1 Immortal on your team, so if there's ever like 5 extremely meta Immortals at any given time, currently I would say there's 2, Ossifer and him. Keep in mind, you can only use 1 on your team. You can't use like both, so you can't do like, you know, Immortal Fernex into an Immortal Ossifer. That is unfortunately not possible, but would be really funny if you could. But currently you are restricted to only 1 Immortal on your team, and this guy might be your Immortal sometimes. He's pretty tanky. We also ended up getting the 2 new ones from the shop. Keep in mind, you have to earn about 150,000 PvP points during the season, and the first one is pretty much useless due to it doing gold marks, and the second one, I guess you could end up going for. As far as what they do, the first one here, which what you should not get, it is way too many gold marks, 2,500, way better spent doing them on deed books. But as far as what he does, and keep in mind, you will be able to get him in the future, just a couple months after the fact, you'll be able to go get him, you know, through the normal means in Soulforge. You'll be able to go get him in event keys down the line, in Dragon's Claw. You'll be able to go and, you know, when you go for mythics, get him in the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest, but you won't be able to for probably about 4 or 5 months or so from now. But anyways, it deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, boosted by purple dragon gems at a pretty good ratio, and in barriers and enchants himself. Overall, the biggest issue here is he has no follow-up, and his traits aren't really anything too special, the most noteworthy one being a 50% chance to convert a purple gem into a purple dragon gem when his turn begins, which doesn't even get you any direct value because it's converting purple to purple, so you're never actually going to get alignment on it. Overall, definitely do not get this. It is way too expensive, and it isn't even particularly good to begin with. As far as the other one, this one is reasonable if you do want to end up getting it. It's only, actually, what was it again? Let me double check. It is, I can tell you exactly how much it costs. They're right over here if you want to go find them, by the way. You go to PvP shop, you go to other, and they're right over here. This one is way too expensive. 2,500 gold marks is way better spent on the deed books, of course. Oh yeah, I forgot I can't do that right now because I don't have enough rating. I was gonna go do it to show it, but I forgot. You do still need the minimum ratings as well, even for the deed books, which I always keep forgetting because it's such a low amount they end up needing for, only 20,000, which you could easily get in a week. But anyways, as far as what this troop, and keep in mind you do need 150,000, so almost completing out the entire PvP event if you want to get them. So as far as the other one, it deals a bunch of scatter damage boosted by green gems, and it does this twice over. So it'll do a bunch of scatter damage, do a bunch of scatter damage again. Overall, this is way worse than what Rowan is going to do. However, it does still do damage against a team that is fully barriered, so I guess that's kind of the whole gimmick with him, but he doesn't really do enough to really justify using him, as he is the same exact mana cost as Rowan as well. I mean, same mana colors, just slightly higher mana cost. But the biggest issue with this is it just doesn't do enough damage. But if your enemy team is 4 times barriered, his second set of scatter damage would still hit them. So the first set would get rid of all their barriers, and then the second set would actually land. As far as his ability, it's a pretty similar... Actually, no, it's actually a little bit better than the other one. It has a 50% chance to create a green dragon gem when matching for an extra turn. So an even stronger ability. This is not guaranteed, but you'll get a ton of extra green gems, or green dragon gems onto the board. If you keep extra turns spamming, you'll be able to get, you know, them aligned, go and get them for even more extra turns, and of course they'll destroy everything in their column as well for even more amount of mana accumulation. Overall, nothing particularly special. I don't really see this replacing out Rowan in pretty much any situation, and even in a situation where the enemy has 4 times barrier, there's other ways to get past that, like the spell, curse, stuff like that. So you're really not going to need something that gets past it with its ability like this when there are other stronger options in the game. But if you are going to get one or the other, it is definitely going to be this troop, not just because it is slightly better, but also because it is substantially cheaper, only requiring 1,500 silver marks instead of like what, 2,500 or 25 deed books. 20. I still find it absurd how much these things are. 25 deed books is that thing's cost. You know how much better 25 deed books is than any single mythic? I don't even care if it's like Zolgoth or something. I would take the 25 deed books any day. Anyways. So, is that all the PvP stuff? I believe it is. Of course, both of them will be linked in the description below if you want to go and read them any further. And on stream tonight, I'll probably be going over them a little bit further, particularly the Guild War one, which I'll probably read literally every single word on there because I only just briefly looked over. I haven't actually gone through like the whole thing yet. But definitely need to, as I'm curious to see what they're going to be doing with Guild War going into the future. We're definitely going to be a lot more casual on it, as far as my guild going into it this time around. Also, if anyone wants to join the guild, we do still have 3 spots left, by the way. So if anyone wants to join us, we have gotten a bit more casual, but, you know, we still do all the event stuff every single week. I feel like that's where a lot of guilds are, especially since Guild War hasn't been around lately. There hasn't been anything to be particularly competitive with, but hey, now that Guild War's back, hopefully it has a good enough reward system where that actually is worthwhile. Because before, if you weren't like the top 3 guilds in the game, you might as well barely even be trying in Guild War. So I hope there's a little bit more incentive this time around with whatever they do for the rework. Anyway, so let's get to the actual event stuff. Let's get into all of the teams for the week. So let's start all the way from the top. Of course, these are also going to be in the description, so if you want to go and copy and paste any of them, as well as the pinned comment, they will be over there. The raid event this time around is for Sin of Mirage. Keep in mind, you do have to use the Bane of Valor on both your teams, as he will be giving you double the amount of score while also having double magic, making him really good for killing out whatever the raid boss is. With that being said, on this first team, we're just using him up front just to get a cast off with him. We have the resummon on the new weapon. You can use the old weapon too. It's like a green-yellow explode. You should be in Soulforge this week, so you can end up doing that as well. It ends up exploding a bunch of purple gems, grants a random status effect to all Sin of Mirage allies, and then summons a Sin of Mirage troop. You can use this or the green-yellow one, doesn't really matter which. This is simply the one from the event, so it's a little bit more accessible this week, especially if you don't have the other one yet, but you can also get the other one through Soulforge. But this one you can just buy up through Tier 3 through the event. We're using the Eclipse Dragon, going to be pretty much your main damage source. You can end up using this not only for the raid event this week, but also for the Underspire. The only main difference with Underspire this week is that you pretty much just don't use Bane of Valor. I think I still showed a separate 2 teams for them, so just to make it a little bit different. However, worst comes to worst, you could literally just run like 1-to-1 whatever your team is. Just keep in mind this guy won't have double his magic when you use him in Underspire, but he will for the raid event and is pretty much required for the raid event for the double score. Next, we have ourselves a little bit of a Gluttony team, trying to get the Gluttony for the Devour, still using this for the resummon, which you can get when your Gluttony happens to die. Ideally, he gets a Devour so he can become really strong, but if he doesn't, which happens due to his low Devour rate, you'll just be able to get resummon over and over again with the Blood Crystal Blade. The Bane of Valor, you can just keep poking with and, of course, kill out the boss first and then poke out everything else. He does have double magic, so you can use him solely as your only damage source if you really had to, and might even be your best damage source depending on what you have access to, which is why we're showing him on a low rarity team. And, of course, Bane of Mercy to go and get us our bunch of purple. She converts all yellow into purple, which, of course, feeds directly into our Bane of Valor, so we can get a quick kill on the boss, as well as just getting his mana up a little bit easier if you're going to be using him to kill more than just the boss. Next, we have ourselves the faction event for red and purple for the Depths of Sin. For this first team, we're using just a quick mana, get Tesla up. I believe one of the console versions actually had Tesla the other week as well, but this basic double Tesla team, just using Thrall Leprechaun to get it up. And of course, if you don't have Teslas, literally just have Thrall Leprechaun into whatever your best red or purple damage source is, and you'll be good to go. You can put a hero here, put your best damage source here, and it'll be good to go. This team just happens to show double Tesla, but if you need other options here, you can put any of your 2 best damage sources there and have everything you need. As far as the higher rarity team, we pretty much just did an all-in Zolgoth team. Still using Throw Leprechaun to get our mana accumulation, here for a little bit of tankiness and in case we need any kind of other utility from it, and just Olgoth doing all the damage. We can opt for replacing our Throw for another damage source if you wish, but in this case we just went for a little bit more mana accumulation instead. As far as the Purification team, a couple different ways you can run it, but the main thing that you need to be running is a lot of the Legend. The Legend deals a bunch of damage to an enemy boosted by their attack. This is one of the few that actually have a good boost ratio for the faction event. One of the best in the entire game, plus having a 20% extra stats this week makes them really solid. This also makes it so you're boosting off the enemy's attack too, because they're going to have a higher attack that you can boost off of since they will also have that 20%, so you'll be able to go hit them pretty hard with the 1-to-1 ratio. Beyond that, he also ends up giving you a little bit of free souls, which is always nice, but the main premise is that he 1-to-1 boost ratios from the enemy, so as the enemies get harder, you'll be able to go and scale with it, which ends up working out really well, and generally if you're going for a 500 pure faction, he will scale very well. But yeah, you can use 2 or 3 of him. In this case, I'm just using Iron Jaw for a little bit of tankiness. He destroys all skulls, so you do get a little bit of value from them, but not much. But he does gain mostly a little bit of durability. This makes it so the enemy won't be able to skull you immediately, while also giving you a ton of durability. So if you want to focus a little bit more on just casting, you'll be able to without having to worry as much about the enemy skulls. And even if they do get some, you have a 50% reduction to it while also gaining a bunch of durability. Unfortunately, he does not gain attack value, but he gains enough durability that he likely is not dying all the way to the final fight. The Inferno Machine is definitely one that you could drop for a 3rd Tutorius, but basically what this thing does is there's a little bit of a backup plan in case things start going awry. He ends up creating either 8 skulls or 8 Doom Skulls, or always summons a Iron Jaw. So he does either 8 skulls or 8 Doom Skulls, boosted by souls, and then summons an Iron Jaw. So you'll always have that summon. This is pretty good if you happen to lose your Iron Jaw there, as you can keep going and getting a resummon over and over again to basically have a perpetual tank. On top of that, he also has a little bit of armor so that he can keep tanking himself, and that's pretty much the whole premise here, using your Iron Jaw to tank, using your Inferno Machine for a little bit extra damage, but also to tank, and then using your Tartaruses to kill the entire enemy team, particularly their Tartarus. Kill their Tartarus first and start working out everything else, and you should be good to go for the Pure Faction at whatever level you're running it at, ideally 500. As far as the Doomsayer class event, you have to use specifically Daemons from Sinner Mirage. With that being said, basically use a Sinner Mirage troop, because aside from the Dragon, I think it's almost like 100% Daemon, pretty much. There's like 1, 2, maybe 3 things that aren't a Daemon there. But for this one, we're actually using the new bat. I don't think we actually went over to go over him yet in the weekly thingy. But he deals some damage to 2 random enemies, boosted by purple gems, and if an enemy dies, creates 2 demonic portal gems. We're mostly using him for this aspect into the Omen of Darkness. You can use 1 Bogus as well and go 1 Bogus and the 1 Sting Bat, but I figured I'd just go with this. Actually, you know what? The Bogus is probably still worth it. I was thinking about that earlier, and it was, oh wait, how do you even spell the Bogus? Wait, let's see. Let's see, I'm going for this. I was thinking of it earlier, and then I switched it to double bat, and then I'm like, wait, why not just make it one of both? Because then you get a better team bonus. Yeah, the Bargus is how you do it. Okay, there we go. But yeah, let's do it like that. This guy also has a double poke. It hits the first 2, also burns and fairy fires them. Has a different explode, but the main reason why you want to do this is you get slightly better bonuses. I was hoping for magic, but yeah, you don't end up getting any magic. I guess maybe if you switch your hero class, but going Archmages for the +3 purple here. But yeah, no extra magic, but you know, if you need a little bit extra durability or something, that will be a little bit better than double Sting Bat. Still effectively the exact same thing. You're just using them for their 1 explode into just a little bit of extra poke damage. I guess the other reason for the Sting Bat is the excess purple that you get from being a Mercy does go into your Sting Bat, so you'll be able to get it that way. But of course, Bargus does hit a little bit harder with its burr and its fairy fire, everything else, whereas this thing does hit a little bit lower and has a pretty useless demonic portal gem mechanic. Like, all of them are equally useless. Not even sure why we have that power gem. It's been one of the most useless ones I've seen so far. And hey, we got our daily done. 3 tributes. There we go. Okay, anyways, what other things? We're still on troops. Let me go over the rest of the team. So we're up to Pure Faction, Doomsayer, Underspire. So Underspire is pretty similar to whatever you run for your raid team, though I did want to show something a little bit different here. You can just 1-to-1 paste whatever your raid team was, though keep in mind the raid troop does not have double magic here. However, if you had wanted to, you could still do that. However, I did go for a bit of a different team with both of these, just for a little bit of diversity. For the Underspire here, we're using Dark Herald with his barrier into creating a bunch of blue lightning gems or yellow lightning gems. Quite a bit of good mana accumulation, though it's a little inconsistent which one of the 2 he creates. However, this team uses both. If he does blue, it'll go back into himself. If it does yellow, it goes into the other exploding weapon. So this is the other one. It's very similar to the one that came out today, except this one is green-yellow instead of red-blue. So it has a different coloration. So depending on what you need for your team in a given situation, it could be better or worse. In this case, it is better because we need something to cover yellow, and this thing covers yellow. So if you use the other one, you wouldn't be covered yellow. You'd be double coloring blue. So ends up working out a little bit better in this particular situation. And on top of that, we're using Scourge of Honor just for a bunch of true damage. Gains all his mana back, or a lot of his mana back, when you get the enemy cursed and diseased. And very conveniently, he curses and diseases on his final trait. While Curse Disease isn't the greatest mechanic overall in the game, the fact of how much true damage he does relative to how much mana he gets back is pretty good. The only big downside is he does end his turn. However, he's going to be ending his turn with pretty much half his mana back every single time, as long as you have enough enemies Curse and Disease, as it does double stack. So every enemy that is Curse and Disease is 4 mana back to him, up to 16 total, assuming the entire enemy team can be Curse Diseased, or assuming they don't have a Doom or something similar, which is 16 out of 22 mana, which is not bad at all. And even if he's only getting partial of that, that's still pretty good as far as getting mana back, and then just use the other 2 to mana accumulate for him. And it should be overall pretty easy if you have 1 or 2 of gosh, I forgot his name already. He's a Scourge of Honor. If you have 1 or 2 of him already good to go, you should be fine. As far as your cheaper end, I do feel like it'll be a little bit annoying for Underspire this week, as cheap options and Cinder Mirage are a little bit lackluster. We're using the same Explodey book as before. We're using Gluttony like that one other team in order to get ourselves a little bit of Devour going on, so we can get a little bit of value that way. And beyond that, yeah, we're just going for Devours, trying to get everything down. Using our backup as the Bargus. Worst comes to worst, you could chip them down with that, and you should be good to go. And yeah, just basically just spamming that until we can end up getting a win. As far as the blue event team, these are the same ones from last week, but I still figured I show it because we still have the holiday event. Don't forget to be doing that every single day, as any day that you do miss it, you do lose out on value. However, even if you haven't started them yet, you'll still be able to go and complete out the Christmas event and get all the rewards you want. So for this first one, you're using Wand of Stars and the Stellarks into the Takshakas. Pretty standard, just all in damage team. We are using this in an order that's a little bit safer, because as you go deeper and deeper, especially this week, you will be fighting, you know, increasingly harder enemies, and with that, you might need the extra tank ability instead of Stellarks potentially dying in first slot. And then for the lower rarity team, we're just using a pretty standard Tesla team, just add a pure blue rather than what you would normally be running with. So just using a pure blue Tesla, double spamming Tesla, and winning out the battle that way, which will upscale very nicely through however many battles you're going to go through. But yeah, don't forget to be doing that. You can find that, of course, in the Holiday Feast event right over here. I think I did end up missing 1 day on accident. However, of course, even if you've missed the whole last week, there's still plenty of time to be finishing out this event. Ideally, you spend about 50 gems every single day. You can spend more, but ideally just about 50 gems every single day, and that will help you get the entire event completed. The main ones to go for are the dragon with its special green-red storm perpetually over and over again with a little bit of AoE. Overall, not too bad if you want to go with a storm option. It's probably one of the higher damage sources of any double storm in the game right now. So if you do want like a double storm that can still hold itself, it works pretty good with like Phoenicia, for example, like a Phoenicia team. Magnus, or whatever that one Magnus dragon was, that one lava dragon ended up running pretty similar to what this guy does, except just a little bit of a different coloration as far as a storm. Of course, we have the thing that ends up buffing it. You ideally want to be buying this 6 times. 5 to get the pet initially maxed, and then 1 more to get the golden version for 700 total points. We also have the power orb for 800 if you just want to get a little bit of extra power orbs for your Zolgoths or anything else you want. This is a pretty optional one, though it is the cheapest you can ever get a power orb, so worth considering. However, it's not like unique compared to the other 2. And the other thing is the winter armor. So far, these armors have returned every single year. We don't know for sure if that's going to be the case forever, but I assume so. It seems like these return every single year. So of course, if you already got this last year, don't even need to worry about it. And if you didn't, you could probably still ignore it, because there's a good chance that it will be available next year as well. So if you don't really want it for just wearing it, you might want to prioritize getting the power orb instead. But the main 2 is definitely the dragon and the 7-time gingerbread to get the golden version, and just get those 2. Whereas the winter armor is a lot more optional, and you could probably get it next year. And the orb of power you can get literally whenever, but it is a very cheap orb of power compared to what is normally available within the game. And of course, you just go fight with whatever blue team you want. Actually, I changed mine to Stellarks triple attack shotgun just because I figured we wouldn't really die too much due to our higher durability. Though earlier in the game, you might have a little bit less durability. But we're kind of good enough to go right now. Oh yeah, of course, we have all the festive stuff. The festive music, too. The festive music, oh gosh, it is so nostalgic. I actually turned up the music a little bit. Not sure if you can hear it in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud. But the festive music that plays, I absolutely love. It's so nostalgic from like 2014 Gems of War 2. From like the first Christmas event they end up doing. But I really, really like it. Let's see, is it not playing right now? Why is it so quiet? Music, come back. There it goes. There's the Christmas music. Wait, is it not playing on your guys' end? I could hear it myself, but on your guys' end, it seems like it's not loud enough. Gotta amplify it up. Wait. Desperate times, go for desperate measures. Wait. There we go. There it is. Yeah, I absolutely love this one. I'm pretty sure they had that all the way back in 2014 as well. The Christmas music thing. But, yeah, I absolutely love that track. It's so nostalgic to me. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the first one. If it wasn't the first one, it's definitely by the second Christmas in 2015. But I'm pretty sure they had that literally for the very first Christmas that was ever in the game. And of course, the game launched pretty much around that time, like late November. So they were almost already in the Christmas event like weeks later. But yeah, that track is back. It's one of my favorite tracks in the entire game. But this playthrough, a lot of things that you currently do during this festive season during Christmas. Anyways, speaking of Christmas events, there is a calendar thing. Actually, where is the calendar? I actually completely forget where the calendar is these days. Where's the other calendar? No, not this calendar. Where's the other calendar? I think it's under offer. No. Oh, good thing I checked. Give me that. I need that. That's my verse I need. Where on earth? There it is, the holiday event. So right over here is the holiday event calendar. Of course, there's a bunch of things you could buy, though you could ignore easily all of them. However, on the 25th, on Christmas Day, as well as on New Year's Day, you'll be able to go get some free loot. I assume it's just a little bit of gems and some trait stones like it normally is. However, who knows, maybe we'll do something special for it. But it's probably just a handful of gems and everything else that they normally do for these. But yeah, don't forget to go claim them on the Christmas Day as well as on the 1st, as they are just free loot. So definitely make sure to go and grab them. Every other day we'll just have like a cash offer thing, which you can pretty much just ignore. Most of them aren't particularly worth it, though. If you do see one that you do want to get, of course, feel free to. But otherwise, most of them are pretty ignorable. Anyways, other things we have going on. Soulforge. Let's go over to Soulforge now. So as far as Soulforge is concerned, actually didn't check it earlier, so let's see. Of course, that's from earlier. Nothing there. Midnight King. Is this the first time Midnight King has been here? I'm not sure. He's only a legend, but I believe he was one of those weird legends that was behind like a event thingy. Not particularly relevant though, so you can still keep ignoring him and just get him in the drop table later. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here that really stands out. Every single thing here is pretty skippable. A few that you kind of use, like Shagra, but like barely ever. It's not worth going out of your way to craft this for sure. I guess Phoenix does get used a little bit, like a little bit, mostly in Volpacia restriction, especially if you don't have Stellarix, but also have Volpacia restriction. It tends to get used quite a bit. Otherwise, you use Stellarix, of course. But yeah, it's a true damager that has a really good final trait, Bless Enchant. It's mostly used for its Bless Enchant. Like 80% of the reason is the Bless Enchant. It makes you, of course, temporarily immune to a bunch of stuff with the Bless, as well as getting the enchant for a little bit of extra mana accumulation. And with enough extra turns, you get it across your entire team, making it basically a 4 times Bless, 4 times enchant. The actual ability itself is pretty average, like really average, but the value comes from his final trait in a lot of situations. Very situational, and you don't tend to use it that much, but if you're crafting any one thing, it's probably the strongest thing in Soulforge, unless you need the dragon this week. Anyways, as far as weapons, isn't this the one? I'm pretty sure this is the one. Let me just double check. Of course, I've already mentioned the Bane of the Gods and stuff like that. This one's a pretty good one to end up crafting because of the explodiness of it. It's a great option compared to Blood Crystal. Make sure if you do get Blood Crystal, you get it from the raid event, not from Soulforge, as it will be better overall value. One thing to definitely mention as far as crafting is the Doomed Volge. This ends up doing it based on purple, and it's probably I would say, the second strongest weapon category in the current state of the game. It's really good. It's basically like the old Journey troops, except for a specific color rather than a specific troop type, in this case for purple. So these are really good to consider getting if you don't already end up having them. 4 times purple teams end up utilizing them very well. Actually, wait, it's based on... yeah, it's based on ally and enemy purple. So any kind of game mode that's like a pure purple restriction, like purple PvP, or who knows, maybe purple Guild War, if we're going to have that returning, or anything like that, it could end up being really useful in those situations. So if you don't already have other options, a great weapon to kind of offset your team if you don't know what weapon you want for your hero. Let me just double check this. I could have sworn one of the weapons was Cinder Mirage for one of these, wasn't it? I think it was Dustbringer. Let me just double check before I forget. Cinder Mirage? Cinder Mirage? No. Why do I always think Cinder Mirage was one of them? Alright, I guess not. Never mind. I always thought Cinder Mirage had one of the component pieces. But, yeah, I guess not. Cinder Mirage? Yeah, no, it was Cinder Mirage. Never mind. Yeah, so those are the big two then. Either Doomed Volge and or the Bane of Gods. Of course, we used that in a couple of the teams. However, if you really had to use the red-blue weapon that comes from Raid event, it would be perfectly fine. You don't really need to go with this other one. It just has better coloration in some situations. Beyond that, alright, we did that. So, as far as the Raid boss. As far as the raid boss is concerned, of course, using him is double magic and double score. You always want to be using him because of the double score component, even if you don't need him for his damage. You should always be plopping at least one of him onto your team. Overall, it's not too bad of an event. Cinder Mirage restriction is pretty good if you end up having some of the better damage sources. This includes things like, you know, Eclipse Dragon, Scourge of Honor, stuff like that. But worst comes to worst, if your only damage source is the Bane of Valor, you can use it. And you can double up on him. So if you go for an extra tier or whatever, you know, because you can't if you do it this way. But if I buy one more tier further, I could have, you know, 2 of them on my team or 3 of them. So if you want to go down that route and have like a tank in first slot, followed by your hero resummon, followed by like 2 Bane of Valor, you can end up going down that route if you have absolutely no damage source whatsoever. Like if you're missing Scourge of Honor, Eclipse Dragon, everything like that. Otherwise, if you do have these, just use them and you should be good. It doesn't really matter which. Just anything that can hit all enemies simultaneously for pretty good damage can end up working out pretty well. In the slightly lower category, we have things like, you know, you can run a first slot Wrath, you can run Bargus for a little bit of offset damage, which also boosts his thing by 50% because of the Fair Fire. So it really just comes down to how you want to go about it or what you have laying around that can end up being used for the event. Beyond that, what else is still on the checklist? Gosh, there's so many things this week. I feel like I'm still forgetting like 5 things. So many PvP things this week too. And of course the holiday event and everything else. Oh yeah, that reminds me. So this Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for the Depths of Sin. This is a red-purple restriction. Wednesday, we have the 2024 holiday pet. So the Christmas pet for this year literally comes out on Christmas for once. So that's nice. So definitely don't forget in all of your Christmas festivities, if you celebrate, to go and make sure to go get the pet. It'll be available, of course, on Christmas Day and throughout the entirety of that day for that 24-hour period after reset time. So definitely make sure to pick it up for the 2024 holiday pet. We'll also be handing out one of the old ones tonight on stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the YouTube channel. So I don't remember which one it is, but it's one of the old ones. So we'll be having that tonight as well, about like halfway through the stream. But yeah, don't forget to get the in-game one in this Wednesday, as it's pretty easy to forget if you're celebrating a bunch on Christmas Day. Anyways, beyond that, Thursday class event, we got ourselves the Doomsayer, pretty ignorable. Nothing really particularly good about the hero class overall. It's just basically 25 free gems. But what is not as ignorable is this Friday, we got ourselves a Vault event weekend. So if you want to go farm anything this Friday, Saturday, Sunday in order to get a bunch of resources, get a bunch of Vault keys and everything else like that, this is the weekend to do so. So worth considering if you want to go stack up on a bunch of loot. So definitely don't forget about that if you have some free time to go do it this holiday. Definitely worth considering, as is the best time to be farming in the entire game as far as getting a ton of various resources. Beyond that, I'm just trying to double check if I didn't forget anything. Boom, 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 boom. Gosh, there's so many things. If I forgot something, definitely mention it in the comment section. Because, gosh, this is one of the busier weeks I've had in a while, that is for sure. Oh yeah, so event keys. So event keys are for Sin and Mirage. As far as Sin and Mirage is concerned, I believe it is absurdly skippable. There's almost no reason you'd want to open event keys unless you're trying to hit like a certain star level for the most part, but let me still go bring all of them up just in case. So, things that are not in the drop table include the following. All 5 troops from the Depths of Sin are not in the drop table. They're from the Depths of Sin portal. The 10 of Wands is not in the drop table for anything at the moment, I don't believe. I don't believe you can even get it in Vault keys at the moment. Because I only have 1, which implies I either haven't opened Vault keys in a little while, or it is not currently in drop table. This is one of the more recent events, and I don't think they've mentioned yet if this is in drop table. If that is wrong, do let me know, but it's definitely not in event key drop table. But I believe it's not in event key nor in Vault key at the moment. I don't believe they've actually added it yet due to it being such a recent one. And beyond that, the other one that is not in drop table is, of course, the new Immortal for this kingdom. This Immortal is from the PvP season, so you'd want to get it through the PvP season, not through event keys, as you cannot event key for it. Of course, you can also not end up event keying for the Eclipse Dragon that is from the Celestial Dragon Egg in the Soulforge. Everything else that you see here is obtainable. This does mean if you get a Mythic, you have a 50-50 chance that you get Scourge of Honor, so that's not too bad. Queen of Sin is not ideal. There's not too much of a use case for her. She only does a double true damage poke, which some things have lifesteal. She doesn't even get to lifesteal them. She also has a double summon, but it's pretty inconsistent because one of them's really good in first slot, the other one's not really good in first slot. If it only was one or the other 100% of the time, it'd be a little bit better, particularly if it was only Wrath. However, it's just not worth using in most situations, has no follow-up on his ability, has a lot of problems that a lot of mythics have. But overall, it's not horrible, I guess, with its resummon, but not really something you want to go out of your way for. But Scourge of Honor, pretty solid. Less of a need to use them these days because of Stellarix and similar things. They're just absurdly good AoE options. Even when Phoenicia was a thing, it was kind of a toss-up if you use Phoenicia or Scourge of Honor. But these days, if you have Stellarix, you really just don't need Scourge of Honor. But he does have some use cases, like, for example, this event week, where you'd be using him for Underspire as probably one of your best options, especially if you don't have the Celestial Dragon. They're both pretty comparable as far as overall viability for the event. And he ends up dealing a bunch of true damage to all enemies and gains much of his Bantam back based on Curse and Disease, getting up to 16 of his 22 back if you have Curse Disease the entire enemy team. Pretty good overall true damager. Tesla tends to beat it out a lot of times, but there are a lot of restrictions, particularly in Sin and Mirage, Daemon, or Wildfolk, where you might end up using this guy. So this week, for example, for Sin and Mirage, Underspire is probably his main use case, at least at this current moment in time. But yeah, it's not really high priority. Overall, I would say it's a very, very, very skippable week as far as event keys, unless you're just looking for something fun to kind of mess around with in first slot. But even then, you're pretty much doing it exclusively if you need stuff for the events or to get Sin and Mirage up to a higher star level. But given how low its star level currently is, I think you can go to, what, 23, 24 right now? It's kind of bottlenecked like a lot of them are. So unless you just want to go to, like, you know, your 10 milestone, your 20 milestone, just get a little bit more stats. Otherwise, wouldn't really be worth opening event keys this week. with all that being said, let's go to the event troop. So if we go over to the shop and go over to the resources, we kind of mentioned him a little bit earlier since he was on one of our teams. But you can end up getting the Sting Bat this week for only 300 glory each. So as far as what this thing does, he deals some damage to 2 random enemies, boosted by purple gems at a 3-to-1 ratio. And if the enemy dies, it creates 2 portal gems, which of course, demonic portal gems, not really particularly relevant. The main thing that's kind of noteworthy about him is that he covers purple. He is a double poke from the kingdom that covers purple, so he's pretty good with the Empower into purple convert. He also gets to do a little bit of explode at the start of battle. Overall, pretty underwhelming. Aside from this Thursday class event, I don't think you're really ever going to be using him again. But in the current state of the game, he is actually pretty good for that Thursday class event. So at least in that situation, he's nice. However, in most situations, using a Barghest is better than using a Sting Bat. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using it instead. But the only big advantage that it has over a Barghest being that it covers purple, as the Barghest does not cover purple. And unless you're doing that on like a Thursday class event, there really isn't much of a use case beyond that for him. But at least he has one single use, if nothing else. He can take up one of your team slots on a Thursday class event for the 25 gem farm to make it maybe like 30 seconds quicker, if even that. But anyways, guys, I believe that is officially now everything. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, wonderful holidays, Happy New Year. Though, actually, I'll be doing another video by then, but Happy New Year if I don't see you by then. And, yeah, tonight, as we mentioned, we'll be back at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we have been every single Monday for Gems of War now. And, yeah, we'll be going over the entirety of everything they've been mentioning with Guild Wars. We'll be going and messing around with all the holiday festivities, and midway through the stream, we'll have one of the past holiday pets, as well as a ton of other codes to hand out during the time, but the big one being, of course, the past holiday pet. But I hope you all enjoy the holidays. Thanks so much as always. Feel free to leave a like on the video. Helps out a lot and is greatly appreciated. And I will catch you guys later, potentially in 2025. Goodbye, everyone. And thanks for watching.